It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Monday here in the Cogswell Motors Studios. It's the worst sports day of the year, the day after the Super Bowl, which was a sucky Super Bowl. Weldon Braxton here with me, Mark Freeman, and Maddie Lassiter, our producer. What a stinker that was last night. The Seattle Seahawks, got to give them credit. Now, we talked all week. I told you before the predictions on Friday that I had talked myself into believing that the Denver Broncos could win the game, and then I went ahead and predicted them to win. So the fact that I had to spend so much time talking myself into believing they had a chance to win the game should have told me all I needed to know. Seattle wins 43-8. Just an absolute obliteration. It started on the first play where Denver gets the ball, safety, snap over his head. Peyton Manning has to chase the ball down. It's a safety. Seattle led for 59 minutes and 48 seconds of the game. Unbelievable. How crazy Seattle's defense played, how well Russell Wilson and the offense played, and hats off to the Seattle Seahawks and all the real fans that I know, not the people who are just hating on who are hating on the Denver Broncos, who jumped on the bandwagon. Big congratulations to those folks for sticking with your team. And wow, the Legion of Boom, the Seattle offense, all of it came together, and Denver played the worst game of their lives. And when, like they say, defense wins championships, and it sure did last night. We're going to talk a lot about it, and Weldon's not happy.
Let me apologize ahead of time. And, Mark, I'm glad you gave Seattle credit. You took your hat off to them, because this side of the desk is not going to do that. This side of the desk is going to squarely focus on the Denver Broncos. I'm sorry, Seattle's defense played well. They did some things right, but the Super Bowl was gift-wrapped and handed to them by the Denver Broncos. So, yeah, I'm gonna get on the Broncos a bit. I won't do it all right now. We'll do it a little bit later. But, yeah, my time will be spent getting on the Denver Broncos. If you don't like that, if you think Seattle should be getting some credit, please check out our stories on rvl.com. The 2 minutes I'm going to speak, because, Mark, I got a lot to say about the Denver Broncos.
Denver did not play well. And, I tried to do this diplomatically because I'm a Denver guy. As far as being a Peyton Manning fan my whole life, I say my whole life, his whole career, except for in college. I hated his guts in college, but came to like him. And really, watch the Book of Manning and then tell me you don't like Peyton Manning. Yeah. Just go ahead and try it. My sister, who is a non-sports fan in a huge, huge way, watched the Book of Manning yesterday, rooting harder than she's ever rooted in a sports game for Peyton Manning last night. He's an incredible human being, and I say that like I know the guy. He could be a giant piece of crap for all I know, right? Right, Maddie? Anyway, long story short, there is a whole lot to talk about today about the Super Bowl. The Hogs went on the road, and would you guess? They lost in basketball on the road. A couple of suspensions, indefinite suspensions by Mike Anderson of Michael Qualls and Alandis Harris for conduct detrimental to the team. We don't know the details of that yet. Those things have not surfaced yet. They probably won't. There will be some folks who will have their opinion, but we are not in the interest. We're not going to share that kind of stuff.
No, and we don't want to speculate, Mark, but this is what I can tell you. Things are really bad right now for the basketball program, and you can say I'm engaging in a little bit of hyperbole and it's sort of overblown, but here's what I know. It's one thing to get close and lose basketball games, close one to Georgia, close one to Tennessee, playing well, showing effort. But now things are starting to unravel. First of all, even though they came back and made it a little bit closer, you're now starting to get blown out. And now the problems are not only on the basketball floor, you're having guys in the doghouse. Now, Harris, I don't know if he's had any issues before, but Qualls has been in the doghouse 2 or 3 times now. And when you get into the doghouse that many times, your future with the program now becomes in question, because how many times can you be suspended or benched? That's something to watch out for. Mark, I think you and I are confident that Mike Anderson should and will be able to return for a 4th season, provided the issues stay on the floor. But if you start having issues away from the court, nobody got arrested or anything. I get that. But when your program starts to show signs of not being in control and you're losing, could get kind of hairy, especially if Arkansas continues to unravel and get blown out throughout the rest of the season. We may have some questions to answer later on.
You know, Nick Mason came on here, former Razorback, Hog Sports Hog Sports Radio show host there in Northwest Arkansas on 99.5, and he told us that Mike Anderson could lose every game the rest of the year and he'd be all right. I don't agree. Because right now you can already feel the pressure starting to mount. And if he lost every game, I know he's not, but if he lost every game from here on out, he'd be out the door. You can already see things spinning in a bad way. He's got his guys in there, and you see the opposite at Missouri where Frank Haith, a lot of people are talking about how crappy a coach, and I still do believe Frank Haith is a crappy coach. Please don't get me wrong, but he's got a new crew of folks in there. No Mike Anderson holdovers, came in and beat Arkansas. So what do you have to say now? Mike Anderson and Arkansas fans, haters of Frank Haith, you watch the team, like Weldon said, sort of going in the wrong direction at this point in the season when you hoped. And really, watching, and I followed ESPN where Joe Lunardi had Arkansas still in the conversation for the NCAA tournament before this game. It's unacceptable for a team that was supposed to be competitive and compete for at least a postseason berth somewhere to go in and lay eggs like they have, especially on the road and really even at home. They've lost games at home that they never lose. So it's been frustrating, and for the guys, Michael Qualls and Alandis Harris, to be suspended, it's just sort of the icing on top right now.
Yeah, it really is, and that's what I target, Mark. Certainly he has to compete the rest of the way. He can't go on a long losing streak. It's disappointing because, again, they were getting close in some games, and now I'm considering Saturday a blowout. They've made it a little bit closer. They got utterly dominated, down 29-11 at one point. That we haven't seen that before. That's going in the wrong direction, and again, now there's whispers. Again, nobody's arrested, but there's still whispers and the perception that you can't even keep your house clean in terms of behavior and being in control of the program. Really doesn't look good. I support Mike Anderson. I root for him. I really hope he gets it done. I believe he can, but you cannot have a free fall the rest of the way. You just can't do it.
I enjoy a fun offensive brand of basketball, and really Mike Anderson's system is predicated on defense, but I enjoy up and down scoring and those types of things that Mike Anderson, Nolan Richardson wanted to do. Obviously, it's all, like I said, predicated on defense. But I do have my questions about Mike Anderson in a couple of different ways. I've made it clear that his lack of ability to call plays when they need to be called at the end of a close game. I watched Duke and Syracuse the other night. Did you see a difference between those two teams? In Arkansas, it's not even close to how they execute.
You're absolutely right. And the thing about it, Mark, and I've heard people say this in defense of Mike Anderson, I understand it. They say, well, that's not what he's done. That's not where he's been. That's not how his offense gets it done. But you talk about having a field press. You talk about having a Squeaky Johnson before, that prototypical point guards that could run a team, get your offense in a good shot. You don't have that right now. Kai Madden has shown himself to be a good scorer in this league, somebody that you can depend on to put some points on the board, but he's not running a team. Fred Gully, bless his heart, he's doing the best he can. I think he's playing the best basketball he can possibly play, but he's still not that type of player. And if you don't have that, you've got to modify your philosophy until you get an Anton Beard or whoever the point guard of the future for you is. And so I think right now to say, well, that's not his philosophy, it never has been. You don't have what you need right now to employ your philosophy. Therefore, modifications need to be made, and that's where I stand on that.
We'll talk more Arkansas later on in the final segment of the show. We've got some good news on the recruiting front heading into Wednesday, which is National Signing Day. Weldon trying to pick him up some recruits of his own.
Yeah. We have at Itasca in Minnesota. We've got about 37 letters that we sent out to players, so they'll be signing on Wednesday. Hope to have a few more that'll be able to sign. And for junior college, it's a little bit different. Signing day is actually our springboard. We get a lot of commits on to sign on signing day, but then of course things fall through at the higher levels, and we're in position to reap the benefits of that. Academics, guys getting squares out by bigger schools, things like that. But it's a great day for the country. Again, I say this about signing day all the time. Whether you're signing with, Alabama, or whether you're signing with Itasca Vikings, it's really important to have that assembly at your school. And, a lot of your friends don't really care. They see the balloons and they see all the things you're about to do. They don't really care what school. It's just cool the fact that you're signing on the dotted line to play college football. So I'm really happy for the kids. I hope they enjoy it on Wednesday.
And to that end, it's a great segue into Our local sports look. Speaking of signings, tomorrow 3:30 at the Russellville High School cafeteria. We'll be there for Austin Robinson signing a baseball scholarship with Crowder College. Lots of folks from around this area making their way to Crowder, and we wanted to say congratulations to Austin Robinson, and we'll be there to take some pictures and share in that moment. It is going to be a cool thing, and I've been to, countless signings since I got here at RVL, and it is a really cool day. It's a neat thing for the parents to see their baby sign on that dotted line. It's cool for the kid to be able to have, the entire school gather, whoever gets to come, and have the media there and take pictures and things like that.
Right.
But then, it's just really cool because they get to continue their career when 90-some-odd% of high school athletes, the last game they play will be the last time they put on a uniform when it matters. So for a guy like Austin Robinson to get to sign with Crowder College, it's a big, big deal, and we are certainly appreciative of the opportunity to be able to go. But as we look at our local sports look, we need to look at basketball because obviously the season's heating up. And schools like Pottsville, they played 2 games. They played Thursday, Saturday, and then they play again today. 3 games in a 4 or 5 day stretch there for the Apaches. It's really starting to heat up, and we've got local basketball going on tonight. We'll break down a couple of these games that happened over the weekend, but I'll share with you the games that are taking place in the next couple of days. Tomorrow, Atkins hosts Lavaca. Danville will be at Charleston. Clarksville is off till Friday. They take on Alma at home. Dardanelle will be, here we are. Dardanelle is obviously at Pottsville today. We'll talk about that game here in a minute. Dover will be at Maumelle tomorrow. Hector is going to be hosting Western Yell County tomorrow. Lamar hosting Two Rivers. Lots of local basketball going to be hosted in this area. Friday, Russellville is going to be hosting Conway. Man, that's going to be a big, big game for the Cyclones, who already beat Conway once on the road. Got a chance to beat them again at home. Like I said, Two Rivers is at Lamar tomorrow. And, we've got some local games that are going to be taking place throughout this week. The big one tonight, though, is the Pottsville Apaches and the Dardanelle Sand Lizards there in the 4A4. We mentioned that Pottsville's 2-0 over the last 4 or 5 days. I guess Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 5 days they'll have played 3 games after tonight. Beat Subiaco on Thursday night in one of the best basketball games I've seen Pottsville play. A defending state champ, and that's one of the best basketball games I've ever seen them play. And then they beat Boonville by 15 on Saturday. Just really starting to come together. 19 points from the kid they call Stretch, Andrew Rushing, 6'6". He weighs about 170 pounds soaking wet, and he's 6'6".
Literally Stretch.
And that's why they call him Stretch. He played a very good game, 19-9 yesterday against Boonville. They've got Dardanelle today. It's coming into nitty-gritty time for the Pottsville Apaches. Now all they've got to hope is that Subiaco can beat Maumelle, and they can end up with the 1 seed going into district.
Yeah, Pottsville back in the mix, Mark. We've mentioned their schedule, how they've played the Maumelle and Subiacos of the world on the road, able to get both games in the return trip and then get another victory. They're really coming into their own. They're a team that you kind of looked at, and I think a lot of prognosticators looked at them and they saw what they lost and said, well, this team they're not going to repeat as champions. They just can't get back. They lost too much. But here we are getting into the hot part of the season where you really need to be playing well, and that's exactly what they're doing. So give Coach Thurman and company a lot of credit. They're really rounding into shape.
The Pottsville boys team looks night and day different than it did last year. And I think it's a testament to Coach Shane Thurman and the staff there at Pottsville for what they've done. We might as well talk about old Garrett Hill too, Coach Hill, junior high coach. They've established a program that's going to be successful for a long time because they've got great players. But Michael Perry and Travis Cole as seniors who were there last year, they're working in some guys who were not playing a whole lot last year and weren't counted upon, and now they're starting to round into shape and play very well. Have to give a lot of credit to Coach Thurman, one of the best coaches that I've ever seen locally. I don't know, there's some guys like Wes Swift at Jonesboro who he's been at Lone Oak, been at Hughes, now at Jonesboro. He's a great coach. There are guys like
it's your boy, Coach Davis. Come on
Coach
now.
Davis, Tony Davis at Clarksville, but Flanagan at Parkview, and some of these all-time greats and statewide greats. But Coach Thurman's putting himself in the mix. He's had some really good teams in the past, and that state championship last year is putting him up there with some of the best. I know for a fact he's been offered several other jobs. He turned one down this summer. So he's a highly sought-after coach, and these Pottsville fans ought to be happy to have him. I know they are. Watching the way that they played, the game plan that they had on Friday or Thursday against Subiaco, it was brilliant because Subiaco, if you look at him man for man, it doesn't look like Pottsville should be able to beat him. They've got a kid who is about 6'4" and looks like freaking Hercules out there, and then they've got another kid who had a dunk, and it doesn't seem like anybody should be able to stay in front of him. And Pottsville just ran at him all night long. They get rebounds and just go baskets on made baskets, missed baskets. They just run and ran them to death and got a win. So I'm very impressed with what I've seen from Pottsville. I'm not saying they're going to repeat as 4A champs. There's a whole lot of speed and athleticism and good basketball in the 4A, so I can't quite go that far yet. But I do know that Coach Thurman and the staff and the athleticism that they do have, the team speed, the team chemistry that's coming together right now, it's going to have them in the mix come playoff time.
I agree. All
right, moving on. Clarksville got a win over Huntsville. I told you how that was going to go. They lost to Morrilton on Tuesday. Morrilton went ahead and won on Friday, but Clarksville got a win over Huntsville. Final score was 71-44. And I tweeted on Friday that it was the most boring game I've ever been to that included 4+ dunks. Clarksville came out and jumped on Huntsville, didn't really let them have much hope. And this is the same Huntsville team who lost close to Morrilton last week, the same Morrilton team who just beat Clarksville. So everybody's expecting it to be a good game. Clarksville came out focused, played very well, ran Huntsville out the gym.
Yeah, we understand that Huntsville didn't have much of a chance. And, some of those scores you mentioned that may have allowed people to believe it may be a competitive game. But ultimately, we understand Clarksville coming off of their disappointing loss on the road to Morrilton. They were going to be ready to play, and then they certainly were. I mean, there's no question about it. Morrilton now, I think the win over Harrison now completes their first cycle of being undefeated throughout 5A West play. We understand they have to play the second half of it now, which includes a trip on the road to Clarksville. We know that will be much anticipated. And
last game of the year.
That's even better. So the stage is really set. We thought, we knew Morrilton would be in the mix in the 5A West, but we were sort of looking at Clarksville and Alma and Harrison as sort of a trio. Morrilton has certainly asserted themselves as a team that Clarksville needs to be looking out for, and so I look forward to that game.
Looking Friday to a return trip from the Alma Airedales to Pantherland. Don't know yet which color Coach Davis is going to be calling for, but he's going to be calling for some sort of out, white out, black out, red out.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I'd probably go with red, but you never know. You never know what he'll call for. But Clarksville hosting Alma, they've got a little bit of time to rest and recoup. So moving on to Russellville, they beat Little Rock Catholic and Mount St. Mary's, both boys and a girls' school. So obviously the Cyclones and Lady Cyclones played two different schools on Friday night, but a big conference win for the boys, the first conference win for the girls.
Yeah, really happy for the girls, Mark. We talked about Alyssa Owens and the injury she suffered, and that team being able to get through that and get their first conference win. Really proud of those young ladies. You look on the boys' side of it, Russellville's playing a little bit better now. They're won 2 straight after they lost to Little Rock Hall. They're playing a Conway team, Mark, as we've talked about. They won in Conway, in the old Conway gym, earlier this year in conference play. Now the Wampus Cats come to town on Friday, and Conway's playing with some confidence too. Winners of their last 3 games. And the theme with Russellville and Conway, they're in similar positions. They're both, I don't want to say beating up on the lesser teams, but they're beating the people they should beat. You look at the Greenwoods, the Catholic, and the South Sides of the world. Russellville, 3 of their last 4 wins have come against those teams. Conway played those 3 teams consecutively, and that's why they enter Cyclone Gymnasium with a 3-game winning streak. So it should be good. Conway's going to come in, and they're going to want some revenge. Russellville's still trying to keep their place in their conference. So it'll be a good game. Conway will be ready, and we'll see if the Cyclones can get it done again.
Like we mentioned, Conway Wampus Cats now 3-4 in conference play, so they're going to be hungry to get a win against the Cyclones. And the Cyclones want to sweep their rival. That'd be a big, big deal for the Cyclones to do that. And if they didn't have to play these stinking Little Rock schools in conference, they may win every game, as they've played everybody else pretty well so far this season. So we're looking forward to a good Friday night of basketball in the area. You've got Russellville hosting. You've got Clarksville hosting. You've got some of these other teams that are going to be in the area. So lots of good basketball taking place over the weekend, over the week, and we hope you'll get out and support your local team. Have your coach, athletic director, or whomever email mark@rivervalleyleader.com if you'd like some of the information shared. I'd love to have more stuff for the site. You can go and visit us at rivervalleyleader.com for your news and local sports information. And we'd love to have as much as we can possibly share here on the Sports Blitz. We got to hit a break. When we come back, we're looking at the Super Bowl. Weldon is going to get mad.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
$43-8. It's the final score of the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 48 was a ginormous dud for me as a Broncos supporter. All the Seattle fans are probably stoked right now, but it was 36-0 with a couple minutes left in the third quarter, and the Broncos just absolutely did not show up last night to the Super Bowl. So welcome back into the Sports Blitz on a Monday here in the Cogswell Motors studio. Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter, and me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What a crappy performance by the Broncos that we picked to win.
That's what it was. I will say this, Mark. In my pick, I did get the point total exactly right, 51 points. I didn't split it up exactly the right way, but
you were close.
Yeah, but I predicted 51 total points, 26-25. We got 51 total points. I just didn't see the Seahawks scoring 43 of those 51 points. I mean, look, the Denver Broncos flat out didn't show up, and I already said this earlier. I understand giving Seattle credit. Their defense was great. You know, they did some nice things and all of that, but that's not how I'm going to remember this game. I'm sorry. If we have time, we can talk about where Seattle's defense ranks all the time and all that good stuff. But for me, the Denver Broncos didn't show up. When you snap the ball and it results in a safety on the first play from scrimmage of a game, you're not ready to play. When you're afraid and you're not ready when you catch a ball near the first down marker and run backwards constantly. Demaryius Thomas was allergic to first downs. He would catch the ball about a yard short. If he was tough and being a grown man, he'd go get that yard, at least be close. He'd run backwards 3 yards, get tackled to set up 3rd and 3 and something like that. I get the battle of, well, it's Denver's great offense against Seattle's great defense. The great defense just won out. No. I'm not buying that. Here's why. The score would have been something along the lines of 31-14 Seattle, if that were the case. Peyton would have done some things, but Seattle's defense would have won out. It would have been something about 31-14. There's no way you can tell me 43-8 is the result of, well, the great defense won out against a great offense. That's part of it, but in large part, that's because you didn't show up. Somebody didn't show up when the score is 43-8. Then on special teams, you're just as pathetic. You give up an opening return to start the second half. Defensively, you let mediocre receivers catch the ball short, break 3 or 4 tackles. I'm sorry, that's just not being ready to play. And I know people will say, well, I picked Seattle to win, and that's what I said. You didn't pick 43-8. You may have picked Seattle. You may have picked Seattle by 10 points or so, but you didn't pick 43-8. So I'm really not trying to listen to anybody playing that. I could have went and got the Cleveland Browns, who are pathetic and who hadn't had practice in a month, and could have put up 43-8. The Broncos didn't show up, Mark. I don't think this is just about Peyton Manning either. A lot of people want to say, another choking example from Peyton. He didn't play great, but this game was far more than Peyton Manning. This was the whole Broncos not showing up. Again, Seattle deserves some credit. Pete Carroll had his team cool, ready to play, relaxed, all that good jazz. But the Broncos didn't show up for the Super Bowl, and that's how I'm going to remember this game.
I gave a whole lot of credit at the beginning of the game to Seattle. With good reason. They scored 43 points. They won the Super Bowl. I have to give them that. On the flip side, though, as Weldon is taken away from the Denver Broncos, I have to agree. Peyton Manning sets the completions record. Obviously, he's going to throw the ball a lot when you're getting your rear end handed to you. Demaryius Thomas, 13 catches, most catches ever in a Super Bowl. Obviously, he's going to be targeted a lot as the best receiver on a team that's getting its rear end handed to him. So there are a couple things that I have issue with. One, you've got a kicker who's kicked more touchbacks than anybody in the league throughout the year, and you pooch kick it to Percy Harvin, a guy who they've already said, and you could hear Troy Aikman and Joe Buck talking about this during the game, that Pete Carroll said if Percy Harvin's back heels are hanging over the out of bounds line, the back line in the end zone, and he gets to receive a kick, he's bringing it out. He's going to kick that thing out of the end zone, kick the thing out of bounds, do whatever you got to do. Don't kick it to Percy Harvin. He returns the kickoff for a touchdown. Terrible special teams play. There's one strike against Denver. That's after the fact that you snapped it. But what the heck is the center thinking? First play of the game, snapping the ball like he did. Peyton, you can see he's audible, but he didn't say anything in the 3-second window between when he started walking toward the center and when the center snapped the ball. He just snapped the ball. So that's a huge mental error. And has there ever been a team who led for more time in a Super Bowl? I mean, because
I don't think so.
Even though Seattle got that safety early on, it was only 2-0, then 5-0. Denver could have taken the lead with a touchdown, and it would have been a different story. But Seattle never trailed in the game, and 12 seconds into the game, they've got the lead they never relinquished. So, from the beginning of the game to the end, they just absolutely dominated. Third, the pick six. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but for one, the offensive and number 4 and number 3 sort of tie together. The offensive line just collapsed. And
donate your paycheck.
Got to give a lot of credit to the Seattle defensive line for getting after Peyton Manning, but my gosh, they were on his arm all night long, just tipping balls and getting in his throwing lanes there. But the offensive line, I don't want to hear the fact that you got injuries and guys that are at least 2 guys that are out for the season early on because they've been playing all year. They scored more points than anybody in history. Suck it up, do something. I didn't like the way that the offensive line played, but the pick six, it was one thing that I'd never heard anybody else talk about yesterday, but the pass was to Noshawn Moreno. Well, right. it ended up being in front of him because it was a tip ball. But the guy who picked it, what's his name? He's the MVP.
Smith.
The MVP of the Super Bowl, a defensive player who had the interception return for a touchdown and also a fumble recovery. Great game from him. Don't want to take anything away from what's his name? Malcolm Smith, who was the MVP of the Super Bowl. But when he catches that interception and Noshawn Moreno is right there and he's 65 yards away from the end zone, you cannot tell me that linebacker can outrun Noshawn Moreno. He's 3 yards away from him. All he has to do is tackle him, and they could possibly hold Seattle to a field goal attempt like they'd done earlier on. And this game's not quite over. But Noshawn Moreno sort of just, whatever, letting him run to the house, touchdown.
Completely
the game
agree.
it was just so many different things that are disappointing to me as a Peyton Manning supporter. Obviously he didn't play the best game of his life. He had a fumble lost and 2 interceptions, just didn't play very well overall. But Peyton Manning is not the only one to blame for this game. I have a lot of blame to go around the defense, the offensive line. Everybody has a slice of this pie.
They didn't show up. That's really what it comes down to, Mark. You're right. Okay, you threw an interception. Your team did. You jogged back as far as your effort in terms of pursuing the guy who intercepted the ball. That's just not showing up. A lot of things Denver did was self-inflicted. 31-14, I would have understood, something like that. This was 43-8. Somebody didn't show up.
And they ought to be ashamed. I know it's a Super Bowl, and Peyton Manning, he said himself he was disappointed. He wouldn't go as far as to use any stronger language than that, but he said he was disappointed, and that's the very least of, really, if you're going to be honest, how you view this game. Old School Baller's on the line. What's going on, Old School Baller?
Well, I just wanted to check in with you guys and get your opinion and comments on the big game over the weekend. See if you thought the best team won.
Overall, I'd have to say, yeah, the best team won. I mean, you watch the way their defense played. I was hoping that Denver would do some things well to keep them off balance and keep Seattle from just coming dump trucking them on defense. They didn't do it. Seattle was coming downhill all night long at Denver, and it was it was a massacre.
No. I said the big game over the weekend.
Oh, the basketball game?
That would be Duke and Syracuse.
Oh, gotcha. That was a good game, wasn't it, Old School Baller? That was one of the best college basketball games I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely, buddy. I mean, I've been around a long time, and I'm going to put that in one of the top 10 games I've ever seen. I mean, I enjoyed that game. That's basketball, buddy.
Were you
and
rooting
it goes
for one
to show
team?
You how far. I mean, I know Kentucky's good, and I know Florida's really good, but the rest of the league, man, it just showed me how far we were. How much better we need to get to be competitive.
Were you rooting for one team or the other in that game?
Not really. I like both of those coaches. I mean, they fought the wars. They've been there. They both deserve whatever they get. Both of them are, top shelf, as far as I'm concerned, top shelf coaches, and have always run good programs. And I respect both of them tremendously.
Well, I'm sort of on the same boat right there. I've never been a big Duke fan, but it was kind of a shame to me that 3 Duke guys foul out in a game that was so big. I know that Syracuse runs the zone, so they're not as foul prone as a man-to-man defense like Duke is. But seeing a guy like Jabari Parker, and then there's another guy that was really big in the game that fouled out, and I'm forgetting his name. To see those guys not there in overtime, that was kind of taken away from a little bit.
It really was. It really was. Old School Baller, while we have you on the line here, you look at obviously Syracuse now in the ACC with the Duke and Carolinas of the world, Pittsburgh too, and you look at the landscape of that league versus the SEC. What is wrong with the conference as a whole? You touched on beyond Florida and Kentucky. There's not much there. What do you think the problem is?
We're football oriented. Southeastern Conference is football oriented right now. I mean, they're satisfied, and they get plenty of revenue just from their football programs and attention. It's more or less just football oriented. The people don't turn out to watch basketball games. You can look at the crowds at Georgia and Auburn. They don't show up. They get to have good football programs. People just are not interested in basketball other than Kentucky fans, in which they have a right to be. And Florida's got one of the best coaches in the country right now, no doubt about it. And they're one of the very few teams that's competitive in both sports. Of course, baseball is big in the Southeast Conference. It's, as far as I'm concerned, baseball is owned by the Southeast Conference. But basketball is just not important to fans. Seems to me like. Now, that's just my honest opinion, which means absolutely nothing.
Well, Old School Baller, you got anything else you want to address today? I know this is a day to get everything off your chest.
Yeah, buddy. Enjoy you guys, and just want to talk about the big game. Super Bowl, I've seen 48 of them. This was probably I didn't even watch all of it. I started watching other things before it was all over with. And I'm a Peyton Manning fan. I like his attitude. Everybody's saying, he's overrated, not a good quarterback. But, guys, he's good. It just all fell apart and just kept getting bigger. When mistakes started happening, they just started multiplying. Before you knew it, that game was out of hand. But I'm not blaming Peyton Manning for it, and I like him for standing up and saying, hey, Seattle's a great team, but no doubt about it. We didn't play well. We just got beat. I like his attitude. I like him. I'd like to see him come back to University of Tennessee in some kind of coaching capacity, and set the woods on fire.
Well, as long as he didn't beat Arkansas, I'll be all right with that.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, have a good day. I speak my 2 cents, and I enjoy your program.
All right. Thank you, old school baller.
Good to hear from him.
Oh yeah, he was pretty level-headed for a guy who, like me, I was frustrated last night. I'm not gonna lie. When the TV went out, did y'all have any issues with Fox?
Yeah,
I was not upset.
How about dropping the ball too? By the way, there's these things called mic filters. You can filter out the outside sound. I couldn't even hear Troy and Joe Buck. I mean, the crowd's like, is this the crowd? Are they talking? Or are they not talking? I mean, there's no filtration. The whole Omaha side bets, those were just out because you couldn't hear anything. You couldn't hear Peyton Manning say anything because the mic filters, whatever they had going, and then of course the broadcast went out. That may have been a good thing the way that game was going. But
I saw one third down play where they actually did have the mic filter working, I guess, properly, and the play caller, the audible that Manning made, Romo, and Garrett Hill was sitting over there beside me. He said, I guess he's going to throw an interception now. I don't think he did. I think it was just an incomplete pass, but it was funny that was the audible. So Denver, 4 turnovers, just a abysmal performance on all fronts. But we have to switch over and say to Seattle, congratulations. It couldn't have happened to a nicer quarterback in Russell Wilson, who, 206 yards passing with 2 touchdowns, didn't make many mistakes, 88 QBR. He was solid. I know that you're not a big fan of his play, but as a human being, he seems like a pretty good dude.
You know what I thought you were going to say? It couldn't have happened to a nicer coach.
No, I don't like him.
I was going to say, Pete Carroll, not a lot of people's guy, but I'll say this for Seattle. Again, I'm not changing my stance on how I feel about Denver choking, but Seattle's defense, we do have to mention them in the context of where they stand with the all-time greats. I'll just say this. I think they're now the first defense to fully reestablish dominant defense in this era of spread and pass. Because, when Manning and Breeze and Brady were putting up, 5,000 yards, we were like, the defense is over with the rules. You can't play defense anymore. Seattle's built a defense with physical freaks of nature on all 3 levels of the defense that can cover and tackle. That's the recipe. I expect now teams to copycat that and take a chance on physical freaks of nature. Even if they're not very good, they don't have good numbers in college, go ahead and draft them anyway and coach them up because they can do more things. I think that's the mold that Seattle's established.
Well, that's a good point because Seattle did play a defensive brand of football. Even going back to the 2000 Ravens, the rules were completely different. So there hasn't been a team in this era. Even talking last year about the 49ers and the Ravens, and they were defensive teams. They weren't near as dominant as what Seattle did this year. I will be interested to see how well they can keep the roster together. Now, I know they don't have a whole lot of guys coming off the books this year, but in the near future, you're going to have to do some things to keep some of those dudes, and it's going to be interesting to see who they keep and who they let go and who gets caught with performance-enhancing drugs. They've already had 5 guys caught, and Richard Sherman was caught, but his sample was leaking, so he got away with it. A little bit sour grapes. Who cares? We're going to break. We come back much more on the Sports Blitz.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
We're joined now here on the Sports Blitz on a Monday by good friend Brad Caldwell, here with Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter. I'm Mark Freeman. Brad's on the line, wants to talk little Hogs, but wanted to get his thoughts on the Super Bowl. Brad, as a Peyton Manning fan, I'm sure you're about as disappointed as I am.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing, no doubt. The one thing that I just kept coming over and over in my mind, and I wasn't the only one that thought this because I saw it on Twitter a lot, was the Arkansas-Alabama game 2011 at Alabama, where Arkansas had all that offense going into the game, and everybody thought Arkansas had a chance to win, and that defense just punished those underneath routes. Very similar. I mean, if you look at the game tape, those two games were very similar to what it was last night. But, the one thing that I will say about last night's game is the fact that everybody's going to blame Peyton Manning, but let's just say this. The momentum of that game was never on Denver's side. I mean, from the start. When the safety, it was just like sharks in a feeding frenzy. And in sports, momentum is very, very important. And turnovers and mistakes and that sort of thing. I'm not saying that Denver was the better team because they weren't, but I don't think 43-8 is what is a true indicator of how different those two teams are.
Yeah, well,
I agree.
Denver, like I told you in the break, I got nothing left to say about the game. I'm frustrated for Peyton Manning because it really hit me last night as the game was ending. I was leaving, going home. Peyton Manning's never going to play in a Super Bowl again. It's just not going to happen. If they're able to get back to a high level next year, as far as playing well in the AFC, they're still going to have teams like New England, who's getting their three best defensive players back. They're getting Gronk back. They're going to be better next year than they were this year. The Kansas City Chiefs in the division, I know that it didn't look like it was that close this year, but another year under Andy Reid. I don't know if it's going to get better or worse, but I would assume that Kansas City will be there and be better. So Denver getting older, it just seems like to me Peyton's run is over as far as going to the Super Bowl and having a chance to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the NFL with injuries and bad breaks. He may or may not get back there, but I do understand your point in terms of them getting it done. Brad, I agree with you. This was so much more about Peyton Manning. I don't know if you heard it earlier when I said if this were just about Seattle's defense being better than Denver's offense, we would have seen something along the lines of 31-14 Seattle, something in that neighborhood. We didn't. We saw 43-8. I agree with you. I was the one that put that up about Arkansas in 2011. 2011, especially when Demaryius Thomas and company were getting just smashed on those crossing routes.
Gosh.
You remember what Dre Kirkpatrick did to Jarius Wright? I'll never forget that hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked a lot like that.
That was, I mean, such similar plays right there. You're so right on that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where Denver just didn't show up overall in the game, Brad. And that's not Peyton, man. That's special team, defense, offensive line especially.
You know, one thing that I do want to say before you get done talking about Super Bowl is the Percy Harvin factor. And I'm sure that y'all probably already touched on it, but one thing that played into Seattle's advantage so greatly yesterday was the fact that Percy Harvin has not played all year. And they got a healthy Percy Harvin for the Super Bowl, and that guy is a game changer. I mean, he has been a game changer since he's been at Florida, and I'm sure even before that. But since we've known who Percy Harvin was, he's been a game changer. There was not much film on Percy Harvin, and then Denver just flat out was not prepared for him, and I think that played hugely into the advantage of Seattle. But at the end of the day, Seattle was probably going to win the game no matter what.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It seems to me, and Seattle, here we are talking more about it when I thought we weren't going to. Seattle at home and Seattle on the road look like completely different teams, or Seattle away from home. And across the country, you would have thought without that loud crowd as an advantage that they wouldn't look quite like they ended up looking yesterday. So I think, Brad, your point about the momentum immediately being on Seattle's side had a whole lot to do with this game. If Denver goes down and scores a touchdown on the first series of the game, things look completely different all night long.
Well, Mark, I'll just slide this in real quick. That's another surprising factor. That crowd was loud when Denver was on offense. The 12th man traveled a lot more than I thought they would. I don't know if it was the cheap tickets available late, but that was a very partial Super Bowl crowd, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I was about to say the exact same thing. That did it not strike you that, I mean, the crowd was very loud, especially for that opening snap that went into the end zone. That was unbelievable. But, yeah, I agree. I mean, the 12th man was alive and well in New York.
Yeah. All right, let's look at basketball. We've got a couple minutes left to look at Arkansas Razorbacks sports, and we got basketball. Obviously, the Hogs lost to LSU, and we talked a little bit about that. I said I didn't want to talk a whole lot about it because I don't have anything good to say, and Mama always said, you ain't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Hogs go on the road. Surprise, surprise, they lose to LSU in a game that Weldon noted just wasn't even as close as the final score.
No, it really wasn't. And Brad, this was my takeaway from it. Arkansas had been close in a lot of games, had an 8-point lead at Tennessee in the second half. Obviously, chances to win against Georgia on the road. Then you look at home, the close loss to Florida. Arkansas had been close in all of their losses except the A&M game in SEC play. It felt like a step back because that game was a blowout for the most part in Baton Rouge. And then, I don't know, the disciplinary actions that we're seeing with Qualls and Harris sort of complicates the situation to me. What do you think?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, but I think when we got the word of Qualls and Harris getting suspended, I think we probably shouldn't expect anything any different. I mean, the team is short anyway as far as players go. And you take what Qualls has been, for the most part, a lot of the year, your best player. Harris has been a decent player at times, but lately has not been. The loss of Qualls was a bigger one than the loss of Harris, but you take two of the players that are out in your rotation, you take them out, and you're going on the road where you have struggles anyway. I don't know what anybody expected to be any different. To be honest with you, I didn't watch the game except for just bits and pieces of it, because I basically just sworn off road games for now. I mean, I'm doing it for my health. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, they're just, at this point, they're not going to win on the road until they prove me otherwise. I don't know why I'm going to put myself through it. And that's just kind of where I stand. But I will say this, I'm right there. I'm still on the Anderson bandwagon, and here's one of the reasons why I am, is I just don't feel like that a rotating door every 3 to 5 years is what this program needs. We have got to figure out some stability and figure out the formula, whatever it is. They've got to figure it out. And they seem to be coming along, adding pieces again next year with Beard and Babb. They're going to make them better, along with Thompson, which will be another guy that will add at least some size to the floor. That he may not bring much else, but he will bring some size to the team. And then it looks like they are on the JUCO recruiting trail pretty hard. So I'm interested to see what they get out of that. One of the guys that they got, or that I think that they will get now, is a guy named Purcell. Can't remember, Devon, that's what his name is, Devon Purcell, a kid that plays for former Hog assistant Scott Edgar, and a pretty good scorer in the JUCO ranks. Of course, you never know. Those have panned out well sometimes and not so well other times. Film looks pretty good on him as far as his athleticism. And then you've got another kid, Keaton Miles, to add into the mix. So, yeah, it doesn't look good now, and I know it's frustrating because I think everybody is just to the point of, is this ever going to happen for the Hogs again? I mean, it really has been almost 20 years since Arkansas has been a factor in the NCAA, and you kind of just wonder if this is ever going to happen. But I don't think that a revolving door at the coaching position is going to help it any. I think we have got to batten the hatches down and stick with somebody for a little bit and see what happens.
Okay, first, you mentioned the LSU game and how you didn't expect anything different. I sort of thought that, as Chris Berman always says, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I thought you got two guys kicked for the moment.
Yeah,
indefinitely suspended. I almost said kicked off the team. And one of those guys, Michael Qualls, it's been well documented the way his attitude off the court is, and I'm not talking about away from the basketball court. I'm talking about like literally off the court when he's out of the game. The pouting and the face making and the complaining and things like that. I thought, with that kind of thing gone, maybe the team can be galvanized and come together. But like you said, Brad, with the team that, Arkansas has played 12 guys, which I think is too long a rotation. These definitely aren't the two guys I'd take out of the rotation. But when you take those guys out of the rotation, it changes the way the team has to function. And when you add that into going on the road where you suck anyway, and you add that into the fact that you've lost, you lost the previous game at home and it was a big letdown. I did expect the game to be closer. I didn't expect them to win, but I wouldn't have been surprised, Weldon, had they come out and played very well together. I was sort of disappointed in the fact that, they got close a couple times, but they just couldn't quite get over the hump. And, maybe against Alabama on, I guess it's Wednesday, you'll see a different team here at home. But I sort of expected more out of this team after what I thought was going to be a good thing for the team overall, having some issues resolved.
Yeah, I thought Arkansas had a chance to be in the game. Of course, with the loss of those two players, you knew that those chances were diminished. But the Kentucky win for LSU, you thought maybe they'd be on a high from that. Give Coach Jones credit in LSU. They came down off that game and were ready to play. But, Brad, I think you're right about the revolving door at head coach. You can't have constant rotation, instability. You've got to really get down and say, this is the guy we're committed to. It's almost like Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. I know it was only 2 years before he went to the championship, but they weren't 2 very good years. You heard no whispers, no talk about Brian Kelly being fired, even though he really wasn't getting it done as much as they wanted him to. And he took him to a national championship game because they said, look, we fired Davey, we fired Willingham, we fired Charlie Weiss. We got to stick with this guy. And, of course, Brian Kelly now has Notre Dame competitive. But, Brad, let me ask you this. We believe Mike Anderson will be back next year. I think it's safe to say that right now. Could this season go down the toilet so bad? Could they have, with losing and off the field or off the court situations to where Arkansas would make a move, or is it just almost impossible to see Mike Anderson?
I just think at this point it's impossible. Maybe I'm wrong. I think one thing that you've seen of Jeff Long is he's very patient with coaches. And he just doesn't let them go unless he absolutely thinks he has to. Excuse me. But I will say that, we've got to realize something here, that we're not dealing with the 1990s Arkansas Razorback basketball team anymore. If we were dealing with the 90s Razorback basketball team and what's going on the court right now, that would not be acceptable. But we have been bad for so long. It has been a horrible, horrible, horrible stretch. And nobody really has been able to get it right. Stan Heath came in, and, he had steady improvement. But, there was definitely some disappointing times with Stan Heath. And and it was a disappointing enough time with Sam Heath that he gets fired after an NCAA loss. And then John Pelfrey, that was just a cluster. I mean, it just did not work out for him whatsoever. But like I said, I just don't think that making a change, even at this point, even if the bottom falls out of this thing, would be a good thing. Now, I will say that if it does happen, to where, let's say that Arkansas goes, 2-16 in conference, or 4-14, or something like that, I think that it obviously turns up the heat on him, where it might give it, next year might be it for him. But you also got to look at this. They're still paying off Pelfrey. They've got $4 million of buyout on Mike Anderson. Next year will be $3 million. And when you put that in basketball terms, this is not football. This is not the cash cow that football is. So a $3 million buyout is a huge buyout for basketball. So they're not going to do anything. And look, guys, the thing is Mike Anderson has been successful at every program that he's been at. He got UAB to the Sweet 16 and the second round. He got Missouri as far as they've ever been as a program. And when he comes to Arkansas and he can't do the same things that he did there, we got to look at and say, maybe it's not the coach, it's the program.
Maybe it is. And one thing I want to touch on before we get out of here is recruiting. He's got to get the Jimmies and Joes to match up with the X's and O's, and there is a good crop of talent in Arkansas. Obviously, he's got Anton Beard, Trey Thompson coming in this next year. Who I don't know a whole lot about Trey Thompson other than the fact that coaches have told me he's not the greatest. But you've got a chance in the next couple of years, Brad, to get after some really good athletes. Kayvon Allen in North Little Rock. A lot of folks talking about him being able to go about anywhere. Malik freaking Monk. A lot of folks, Nick Mason included, talking about him not coming to Arkansas, going to Kentucky or someplace else.
Right.
It'd be a big, big get to get some of these local guys. Maybe Adrian Moore turns into a guy at North Little Rock, formerly of Conway. Maybe he turns into a must-get for Arkansas in the near future if I know that this Kai Madden, Hunter Mickelson class with who was the other one? There was another one that went to Aaron Ross that went to Texas Tech. They were a must-get class, and we thought everything was going to be great when they got here. Wasn't quite that way. Do you think things turn around if Arkansas gets those guys, and do you think Arkansas can get those guys?
Well, I think that we have got to show some improvement. I mean, I think that Arkansas has got to show some improvement, but I do think it's going to happen. I mean, look, I know that we're not getting what we want to get out of Michael Qualls all the time, but the guy has improved. Antoine Bell has shown times where he's improved. You got to think that he's going to take those next steps. These guys are, and then you got to think about Bobby Portis and Moses Kingsley. I mean, those two guys are going to do nothing but get better. And I mean, you've got to think that things are on the right track. The problem is that everybody puts this 3-year window on a coach and says, this is what has to happen, and that's not necessarily it. And I throw it out there all the time. Tom Crean, Indiana, 6 years it took him to get them to the NCAA tournament. That's Indiana, folks. That's Indiana, rich in talent, rich in tradition. Indiana, it took them 6 years to get there. But back to the talent that Arkansas has. Arkansas has, from basically now until 2016, some of the best talent that has seen in many years. I believe that Malik Monk is the best player to come out of Arkansas since Corliss Williamson. I think he's that good already. And I think that these guys could turn the program around. But I also know that there are guys out there that if they were to get them, if they did not get Monk or they didn't get some of these other guys, it could soften the blow. There's a guy named King McClure out in Dallas right now that right now has Arkansas and Kansas as his top two. Now, I would say that Kansas is by far and away the leader, but you never know. When you're in the top two, you're in the ball game. So there are guys out there that Arkansas could get. But the fact of the matter is, Mark, like you said, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. When you look at Mike Anderson's offense, which a lot of people will say is a lack thereof, it is all about motion. It's all about playing off of each other. And if you watch his best teams, it's when he has a strong point guard that can handle that offense. And when it is, it's really good. And when it's bad, it's really bad. Right now, it's really bad. But I think you've got guys coming in here that can make it a lot better and do it pretty quickly.
I agree with everything you said, Brad. Shifting gears a little bit as we get ready to close shop. Arkansas football National Signing Day, of course, is Wednesday. Frank Ragnow, the big offensive lineman from Minnesota, one of the big recent commits for the Hogs.
Spurned you, didn't he? He spurned Itasca for Arkansas.
I wish we were on the list. That would have been good publicity for us. But no, this class is really rounding into shape, Brad. A few more openings. Where are we at, and what do you think about the Hogs class?
Well, I think it's a dadgum miracle that Arkansas is in on some of the guys that they're in on right now. I mean, to think about Arkansas coming off 4-8, 3-9 seasons in football, and to be able to have the opportunity to close on some of these guys that they do, I think is amazing. Now, I don't think that they're going to get Andrew Mike. I think he'll announce today, and I don't think it'll be Arkansas unless something changes between now and announcement time. Kenny Young is probably not a guy that Arkansas is going to get. But I do think they're going to get JoJo Robinson, and I do think they're going to get Solomon Thomas.
Well, JoJo Robinson's a wide receiver, right?
Points to that. And if you get a guy like Robinson, you get a guy like Thomas, also a guy named Lamont Simmons, 6'2", corner out of South Florida. I think that's huge. Also, I think something that you need to pay attention to is the Randy Shannon hiring that probably is coming as defensive coordinator. And then watch who they hire for I guess it'll probably be the safeties coach. And if they go after a guy named Ice Harris out of Miami is it Northwestern? No, it's Booker T. Miami Booker T. He's a high school coach down there. He worked with Randy Shannon on his staff at Miami. And there are some rumors that he might come. If that happens, that's going to open up a Florida pipeline like we've never had before, which, I mean, Arkansas is already getting guys that they've never gotten before out of Florida. But it will be unbelievable how many players that will get out of the Miami area if that happens. So watch for that. But I think overall, to say we have gotten enough quality players out of this class to be impressed with the staff and how they've recruited, because it looked like a disaster for a long time, not only on the field but in recruiting. But somehow they've been able to salvage it, not only salvage it, but bring in some top-flight talent. I mean, if they get Solomon Thomas, Thomas is the number 4 player in Texas and the number 37 player overall. And I would say at this point, Arkansas is the leaders for him.
I do too. Good stuff, Brad. Will you carve out some time on Wednesday to join us?
I might be able to do that. I mean, we never go to school up here in Huntsville, so it's very possible.
Seriously. All right. Well, thank you for calling in today. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday, we hope.
Thanks.
That's Brad Caldwell, former co-host of the Sports Blitz, and now he's a regular contributor giving us his insight. Some good names to be remembering for signing day here in the next couple of days. I do think Randy Shannon will be named defensive coordinator. Kind of curious to see why they're waiting so long. Maybe they're going after some, they've got secret recruits and secret visitors all the time. Maybe they're going after somebody who is a bigger name, a bigger possibility, and they want to keep it secret until later on, and they've told this person ahead of time. And I don't know what the game is. Yeah.
At this point, because, I mean, what have you waited on? I mean, unless he was coaching last night in the Super Bowl, and then if he were, he better not have been coaching on the Broncos staff.
That's all the time we've got for today. Wednesday is our National Signing Day special. We'll talk about all the recruits that Arkansas has got. It's going to be a huge show as we talk about the national letters of intent that have been signed and faxed in. It'll be a breaking news day as things pop in and out real quickly. So we hope you'll join us at rivervalleyleader.com at 11 o'clock on Wednesday. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again on Wednesday.